that. Thank you, sir. We'll get going. Good evening, everyone. My name is Raquel Dancho. I'm the Member of Parliament for Kildonan and St. Paul. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out tonight to join us. This is going to be an amazing night. It's great to have so many people here to send Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau a very strong message that Canada cannot afford them anymore. I know every person in this room agrees that it is time to bring some common sense leadership under Pierre to Ottawa. It is time. And you know, it's amazing in Winnipeg the turnout Pierre gets, and we are seeing this everywhere he goes across the country. People are fed up with the NDP Liberal coalition. It's time for them to go, and we are hearing this message loud and clear across Canada. And in fact, I see many of our common sense conservatives in the room here, so I'll introduce all of you to them right now. We have James Bazan, Member of Parliament for Southwark Interlake Eastman. We have Don Plett, this party stalwart, folks. Give him a huge round of applause. Senator for Manitoba. Don is fighting the good fight in the Senate for us. He's incredible. Thank you, Don, for being with us tonight. We also have, where's Marty? Marty Burmans, where are you? Oh, there you are, Marty. Marty is the Member of Parliament for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley, soon to be known, thank God, as Winnipeg West. Thank you, Marty, for being here. We also have the President of the Conservative Party of Canada, Manitoba's very own Stephen Barber. And we have Ted Falk, Member of Parliament for Provencher, Conservative stalwart. Thank you, Ted. And I'm trying to see if we have our candidates as well. Royden Russo. Royden Russo, candidate for Winnipeg South Centre. And lastly, one of the very important gentlemen of the evening, Colin Reynolds, candidate for Elmwood Transcona. Thank you so much, Colin. You can see the room is here to support you. And so a few housekeeping things for tonight. We have...
Wow, this is some support. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out.
That's like a $10,000 rig.
Here we go. My name is Colin Reynolds, and I'm proud to be your Elmwood Transcona common sense conservative candidate on Pierre Pollievre's team. My family has lived in the Winnipeg area for 50 years. My dad retired as a principal from River East Transcona School Division. I met my wife in high school at Kildonan East Collegiate. Together we have 3 adult children and 2 grandchildren living right here in Transcona, and they're here with me today. I'm not a politician. I'm a 20-year construction electrician, and I'm a proud member of IBEW Local Union 2085. Being an electrician requires hard work, diligence, and accountability. Because if you don't do the job right, the lights go out, or worse. Most of all, being an electrician requires common sense. Just like the next job I hope to do for you as your Member of Parliament. People here in Transcona and Elmwood fight their battles, but they look out for their neighbors too. They work hard, they love their country and its flag. They deserve a better government than we have now. Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau's costly coalition does not represent union workers like me. The NDP in Ottawa have abandoned me. They want to ban my beautiful truck, and they want a 61 cent a liter carbon tax. Thanks to the NDP and the Liberals in Ottawa, everything is more expensive. Crime and chaos run rampant in Winnipeg streets. And we have enough is enough. Let's send Jagmeet and Justin a message. And we have the man here to do it. Pierre Pollievre is the leader of Canada's common sense conservatives. He grew up as an adopted son of 2 school teachers. His wife Anna came to call Canada home as a refugee from Venezuela. Canada made and kept them a promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. That hard work pays off with powerful paychecks that buy affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods. That promise is broken after 9 years of Trudeau. Pierre's mission is to bring home Canada's promise. His common sense plan is to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. He wants to bring home the country we knew and still love. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the leader of the Common Sense Conservatives and the next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Pollievre.
God bless you, God bless you. We're with you, Pierre. Shake my hand.
Who's ready to axe the tax? Who's ready to build the homes? Who's ready to fix the budget? Who's ready to stop the crime? And who is ready to elect common sense conservative Colin Reynolds in Elmwood, Transcona? Have a seat, everybody. It's great to be home on the prairies. Whenever I look out at that big sky, having grown up in Calgary, of course, everybody in Ontario knows you can see Calgary from Winnipeg, right? Because it's so flat. It always feels like home to be back. And, we have this incredible candidate. What a choice. When we looked into Colin's past, as we do when we invite a candidate, we found something shocking. He's an electrician. Bad joke.
I can see it from here.
Come on, wasn't that bad?
I can see it from here. This is good right here.
An electrician, someone who knows how to build things, somebody who's held accountable for the results, somebody who has to keep his word if he wants to have a paycheck. Wouldn't it be nice to have a member of parliament like that? He understands that protecting our environment is about technology, not taxes, and that's why job number 1 for Colin Reynolds and the Common Sense Conservatives will be to axe the tax. How do you like the merch? How do you like the merch? My wife Anna actually designed it. You can get it at bringithome.ca. Bringithome.ca is where you can get one of these, and you can spread the message far and wide across Winnipeg, and in particular in Elmwood, Transcona. Because as you know, we should be having a general carbon tax election now, because the Canadian people have clearly lost confidence in our costly and incompetent Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But somebody has come to Justin's rescue. And who was it? Jagmeet Singh. Sellout Singh. Sellout Singh turned his back on the people of Manitoba and voted hundreds of times to keep Justin Trudeau in power and to hike his carbon tax going forward to 61 cents a liter. Now, does anybody have an idea why Sellout Singh is so determined to avoid an election and keep Trudeau in power?
Pension!
He needs his pension. His pension doesn't kick in until next year, and so he has to delay the election until the carbon tax election until that time. But we do have some small good news, and that is that there will be a mini carbon tax referendum in the Winnipeg area riding of Elmwood Transcona, where the people will be able to decide. They will have a clear choice in this carbon tax by-election between the costly and radical coalition of Singh Trudeau, who will hike your tax, punish your work, tax your food, ban your hunting rifle, double your housing cost, and unleash crime in your community, or common sense conservatives, Colin Reynolds and Pierre, who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. One, even though I am out here in the prairies and it looks like home, I don't think anyone in the room would disagree with me that no matter where you are in Canada, it feels like we're a long way from home, doesn't it? Hard to recognize the place after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP. Everything costs more. In fact, we now have 2 million people lined up at food banks. 1 in 10 Torontonians, by the way, now eat at a food bank. The cost of housing has risen faster in Canada than in any other G7 country. It's gotten so desperate that in St. John's, Newfoundland, there are literally dead bodies piling up in freezers outside of the main hospital because the loved ones cannot afford to bury their dead. 1 in 4 school children are going to school malnourished. That's according to the government's own data. 25% of Canadians now live in poverty. Over 60% of our youth believe they'll never be able to afford a home. This has never happened. Our economy is shrinking faster than any other G7 country, and we have by far the worst economy in the nearly 40-member OECD for this decade, and according to that organization's projections, for the next 3 decades. This is the obvious consequence of wackonomics. Chaos, drugs, and disorder reign in our once safe streets. Violent crime is up 50% over the last 9 years as catch and release allows repeat violent offenders to go back onto the streets, reoffending before they have even had their trial for the previous crime. And then, of course, we have drugs in every community and so many of our loved ones being lost. But the good news is, life was not like this before Trudeau and Singh, and it won't be like this after they're gone. Starting with axing the carbon tax. Let me tell you why this is so important. The carbon tax is not just on your heat and your gas. It's indirectly on everything else you buy. Everything that goes on a train or a truck becomes more expensive. And that passes on through higher grocery bills, which is ultimately a tax on food. And on top of that, it destroys paychecks. According to data released by the government itself, the carbon tax this year, this is by Trudeau's own government, is subtracting $25 billion from our GDP. That works out to almost $1,500 for every single family in Canada. That's not the cost you pay at the pumps or in your heating bill. That's the loss of wages that your family is suffering because of all the businesses that have to set aside money for taxes instead of for wages. By axing the carbon tax, we'll allow those companies to compete. We'll also avoid the catastrophe of a tax increase that applies north of the border, but not south of the border, which of course would mean there would be a large sucking sound of our jobs, businesses, and money leaving for lower cost energy in the United States of America. We need to bring that money home to Canada, and that means having abundant, affordable, low-cost energy that you can rely on. We have to fix the budget, which is broken. Trudeau and Singh have doubled the debt, and they printed money to pay for it. No wonder we have inflation, or just inflation. Right? This is how it works. Trudeau has added about $700 billion to the debt. Now, how did he pay for it? By printing cash. It's very simple. Our money supply, which is measured in a wonky economist speak in the terms of M2, which is coins, bills, and bank deposits, has gone from $1.8 trillion to $2.5 trillion. That's an increase of $700 billion in less than 4 years, during which time the economy has only grown by about 4%. So the money supply has grown by 40%, and the real economy, that is the stuff that that money buys, is up 4%. In other words, we're growing the cash 10 times faster than we grow what money buys. So let's look at it this way. How about an apple? This is a good way to demonstrate. By the way, there will be tests later on. If you get some of the stats right, you get a free apple from me. Anybody remember how much money Trudeau's printed? Who said $700 billion? This nice lady over here. Here's your apple. Come here, sweetheart. I don't want to make you apple. There you go. Hey! Look at that. You know what she's going to do with that apple? Bring it home. So imagine you have an economy with 10 apples and $10. It's $1 an apple. And some politician says, I got an idea to make us all rich. We're going to print money. So now you've got $20 in the economy. But still, only 10 apples. Well, what happens? Are you twice as rich? No. Each apple costs twice as much. That's what inflation does, and it's been tried by emperors and kings and prime ministers and presidents as long as their luxurious tastes have outpaced the production of the working masses of the population. Now, it's very good news if you're inside the castle walls. You get that printed money first, you get to spend it before it loses its value. If you have lots of assets that go up, if you're a billionaire who has yachts and watches and fancy bottles of wine and artworks, they'll all inflate and you'll get richer. But if you're a working class person or you're living on a pension, then your purchasing power goes down. It's a transfer of wealth from the have-nots to the have-yachts. You would think. Now you would think the NDP would be against that, right? Taking money from the unionized working people to give it to the billionaires and big government. I thought the NDP was supposed to be for the worker. No, they're not for the worker. They're for the insiders, they're for the bureaucracy, they're for the big shots on Bay Street, and they're for whatever it takes to get Singh his pension. But the good news is we have a workers' party. It's a party that has an IBEW member right here in Colin Reynolds. And the most important thing we can do for workers is protect the purchasing power of their wages by ending government inflation, the inflation tax. And here's our common sense plan to do it. We will cap spending with a dollar-for-dollar law that requires we find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending. This is how single moms, small businesses, and seniors run their budgets. They want to spend more here, they spend less here. Or they get a bargain here and there. What we have right now is an and approach to government spending. This and that. No, it's this or that, or you get a bargain on both. That's how you discipline spending. You see, as the great Thomas Sowell said, the number one rule of economics is scarcity. Everybody wants more than there is to have. the number one rule of politics is to ignore the number one rule of economics, right? Every creature in the universe, except the politician, has to live with scarcity. The birds in the trees, the fish in the seas, they must all maximize use of scarce resources. Politicians just put the bill on your shoulder. The only way to do that is to pass a law that caps their spending, forces politicians to live with scarcity, because you have been pinching your pennies for too long. It's time for government to start pinching pennies too. So get the Bank of Canada back to its core mandate, which is protecting the purchasing power of our money, not creating cash to fund government spending. The Bank of Canada has one mission: keeping the loonies' purchasing power. And that is the only job that it will have when I'm Prime Minister. It will no longer be an instrument of illegal taxation as it has become under Justin Trudeau.
That'll be $10 at the end of the night. Oh, no problem.
And there will be no central bank digital currency. So then, what about the WEF? We're going to ban all of our ministers and members from any involvement in the WEF. Instead of creating more cash, we're going to create more of what cash buys. Grow more food, build more homes, and produce more Canadian energy and resources here in this country. Produce more, make more stuff here in this country. Right now, we're doing exactly the opposite. Our per capita GDP is now smaller than it was in 2019. It has fallen in size more than any other G7 country. In fact, our wages are significantly lower than south of the border. Our GDP per hour worked is significantly lower. Productivity is a fancy schmancy word for the number, you take the total GDP and divide it by the number of hours everyone in the economy works, you get your productivity. We produce $53 an hour in US dollars in Canada per hour work. The States, they produce $80 an hour. So as you can imagine, they can produce more wealth in less time than we can. Why? It makes no sense. We have more land and resources per capita. We have better workers, and I think better people. I love our American friends, but I'm biased in favor of our own people, right? So why do they produce more than we do? The answer is capital. They get more capital than we do. The investment per worker in the United States is $28,000 per worker. $28,000. In Canada, it's $15,000 every year. Now, think if you're competing with a guy on the other side of the border. He's getting $13,000 more machinery, technology, vehicles, every single year added to his toolkit than you are. It's not hard to imagine that he will be producing more than you produce. Now, why does he get more capital? The answer is our money is leaving this country. It's leaving in massive numbers. For the first 14 years of this century, 2000 to 2014, Canada was winning the war for investment with the United States. We were getting about $30 billion to $100 billion more from them than they were getting from us. Since Trudeau took office in 2015, it's gone in the opposite direction, and now Canadians invest $450 billion more in the US than the reverse. That's Canadian money building pipelines, business plazas, mines, factories, warehouses, and other projects that pay American workers. I don't know about you, but I don't get out of bed every morning thinking about ways to create jobs for Americans. I want to create jobs for Canadians, and that's why we're going to bring our money home. Here's how. It starts with a bring it home tax cut. Justin Trudeau just hiked taxes on our entrepreneurs, home builders, innovators, and farmers. This capital gains tax hike. Common sense conservatives were the only ones to vote against it. And we have announced that within 60 days of my taking office, I'll have a tax reform task force that will design a bring it home tax cut to make our system simpler, lower, and fairer. Simpler. We'll simplify the tax system to cut compliance and administration costs by 20%. We'll make it fairer by cutting off corporate welfare to multinational companies that take our money out of the country and cracking down on overseas tax havens and using that money to lower taxes for working class waitresses, barbers, and other Canadians here in this country. And finally, we're going to be cutting taxes on work, investment, and making stuff in Canada so that you bring home more of your paycheck and we bring home more production to Canada. Yes, and somebody asked, what about the CBC? Yes, we will be defunding the CBC. Great questions here. Wow. You get answers too, eh? You get answers. Whoever asked that, you gotta get a free apple for that. But we're not, it's not only taxes that are driving our money away. Our money is being driven away by anti-construction and anti-resource laws, the gatekeepers that prevent us from building things here in Canada. C-69, the unconstitutional no new pipelines law. The second slowest building permits of any country in the OECD. It means it's easier to build things abroad than it is here in Canada. Capital goes where capital grows, and it can't grow if it can't get a shovel in the ground. So, common sense conservatives will repeal C-69. We will replace it with a law that, yes, protects the environment and consults First Nations, but gets decisions made so that we can build pipelines, dig mines, open big LNG facilities, and get busy building the Port of Churchill. Think of LNG. We've got 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas right beneath our feet. And the Japanese, the Germans, the Greeks, and countless others have said they want to stop buying Russian gas. So they came to Canada, and Trudeau said, no, there's no business case. Why don't you call the Kremlin? And so he's financing Putin's war against Ukraine by blocking energy exports here in Canada. We have the best business case in the world for LNG. One, we have clean hydroelectricity with which to liquefy it. Two, we have the shortest shipping distances to both Europe and Asia of any country in the Americas. And three, how do you liquefy gas?
Freeze it cold.
You cool it down. See, this guy gets an apple. What a catch. And it is cold in Canada. It got so cold in Ottawa last winter, Trudeau was seen with his hands in his own pockets. But the engineers will tell you liquefying gas is 25% cheaper in Canada than in the US Gulf Coast because we have so many fewer degrees of temperature that we have to cool out of the gas to liquefy it and get it on a boat. But when I'm Prime Minister, we will grant fast permits to LNG liquefaction. We'll put it on a ship. We'll send it off to Asia to close dirty coal-fired plants over there, reducing emissions by far more than we could ever with any tax or penalty over here. We'll send it off to Europe to break European dependence on Putin, and we'll turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. Bring it home! 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 And that will be jobs for the IBEW workers, right? Okay, do we have any IBEW here today? There we go, you have your two sons, they're a member of the IBEW, right? Yourself, I think the president of the local is here as well. And those jobs will be going to our people rather than going to Russian workers and other foreign dictatorships. Our people know how to do it better and cleaner. We're going to bring the jobs home, but you need a home to bring it to. Our young people can't even afford homes. This was unthinkable. It used to be if you had a decent job out of high school, by your mid-20s, you'd be able to afford a house. In fact, housing should be dirt cheap in Canada because we have the most dirt to build on. The second biggest landmass in the world, the fifth biggest per capita. Yes, and much of it is close to the Canada-US border. We're able to build around our cities, but for one obstacle, the horrendous bureaucracy. We have the worst bureaucracy probably in the developed world. It takes 3 times as long to get a building permit in Canada as it does in the US or over in UK. And that adds hundreds of thousands of dollars to the cost of every newly built home. That's why we have the fewest homes per capita of any country in the G7. So how are we going to fix it? Well, it certainly won't help for the federal government to keep rewarding local bureaucracies with bigger and bigger checks. Ottawa is sending $5 billion every year in quarterly installments to build up local government bureaucracies. Now, the politicians love to brag about how well they're working together. They're getting along really well, right? They hold these beautiful press conferences, all 3 levels of government are there, they're patting each other on the back. They're getting along well, but you know who's not? The people who can't afford their rent. So I'm going to start paying for results. I will require local governments speed up permits, free up land, and cut development taxes as a condition of getting their federal money. They will have to, yes. We will require they permit 15% more home building per year as a condition of their getting their money. If they meet the target, they'll get a bonus. If they miss the target, they will be strictly number of homes built. We will pay our local governments federal money the way realtors and home builders get paid, which is to say per home completed. That will remind the bureaucrats that they won't have a paycheck unless they quickly grant the permits and let people get building. Every federally funded transit station will have to be surrounded by high-density apartments. Before the federal money will flow to the city, they will have to get bridge financing in between time. We will sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land. And you know something? It warms my heart. You don't understand. To think of the beautiful family rolling up in their U-Haul to move into their new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. The bureaucracy, my edict to the bureaucracy will be, I want you to tell me every square inch of land that we don't need to protect the environment or run the government and sell it all off for housing. And we're going to back the trades, right? Because we need more boots and not more suits in order to get the homes built. That means get working with the Red Seal Council to have more trades training material available for the high schools to adopt. It means that the same number of federal dollars that go to post-secondary universities per student must go to training centers and polytechnics, and it means a tax fairness for traveling trades workers so they can write off the full cost of food, accommodation, and transportation to get from one job site to the next. If a CEO can write off his private jet, then a welder or an electrician should be able to write off the cost of getting to work too. Letting people get to work. I will be a constant opponent of any vaccine mandates for COVID. We have 20,000 immigrant doctors, 32,000 immigrant nurses blocked from working in our healthcare system because there is no direct path to prove their qualifications. 85% of Filipino nurses in Canada cannot work because they can't get a license. In the States, they can take a test in 2 weeks and get to work proving they're qualified. Here in Canada, they're shut out. In Toronto, they say if you have a heart attack, don't call 911, call a taxi because the driver is probably a doctor. We have had a red seal in Canada for 72 years for the trades. All the feds sat the provinces down and said a mechanic is a mechanic, an electrician is an electrician. Let's have one standard so that our workers can travel across the country, that they can be ticketed and licensed based on their merit. It works, right? Any red seal workers in the room? Yes. But we have no such thing for the professions. So my common sense plan is to put in place a blue seal for the professions so that those trained abroad or trained in a different province can take a test, prove they're qualified, and get to work, and we can have more doctors, more nurses, more engineers, more people. Working to bring those paychecks home to safe neighborhoods again. Do you have any crime in the city?
Lots. So much.
Yeah, every day. Every day. Somebody met a guy today, just had his windows smashed out. You know, we met a guy in Brampton. He was telling me that, given that he lives in Brampton, he knew his car was one day going to be stolen. And so he put an air tag in the trunk. He woke up in the morning and he looked out the window, and what do you know? His car is gone. So he opened up his AirTag app on his phone, and he saw that the car was on a train track, headed off to Montreal. Well, what's in Montreal? The port. So he called the Port of Montreal. They said, oh, we can't do anything about that. We don't open all the containers. He called the Peel police. They said, oh, the train's already left. We can't help. He called the RCMP. He said, oh, that's a municipal matter. We can't help you with that. So he got in his car and he drove all the way from Toronto to Montreal. He gets there, he sees the dot on his phone showing that the train has parked. He jumps over the fence towards the parked train, walks right up to the box that appears to be the one that has his car in it. And all of a sudden the CBSA officials come running over. And he says, oh, thank God you're here. This is my app showing that my car is in that shipping container. Maybe you can just give it back to me. They said, no, you're trespassing. We're giving you a fine.
Terrible.
He says, okay, fine, I'll pay the fine for trespass. Can I just have my car back? They said, no, we don't have the resources to open containers. They picked up the car, they picked up the box, they put it on a ship, they sent it down the St. Lawrence, off to the Atlantic. He could actually watch it shipping its way through the Atlantic on his phone as it went off to serve organized crime on the other side of the ocean. You know, it's very simple. We're going to buy scanners that will peer into the shipping containers so that if the manifest says that it's widgets, but the scanner shows that it's a beamer, you pull the box aside, you open the box, you match the VIN to the owner, you call the owner and say, were you planning to send your beamer to Lebanon this morning? No, I wasn't. Well, would you like to have it back? And then you find out who booked the shipping container, you show up at their house and say, you're under arrest.
Yeah.
Now, I did say that there would be a dollar for dollar law, so how are we going to pay for that? We got to find the savings to pay for these high-powered scanners, so we've costed that, and I'll tell you how we're going to pay for it. We are going to respect licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested firearms owner and cancel the $7 billion gun grab. So instead of going around harassing sports shooters and hunters, we're going to put the money into reinforcing the border to stop criminals from taking stolen cars out and bringing drugs and guns in. Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle is not the problem. I want to protect Canadians from criminals. Trudeau and Singh want to protect turkeys from hunters. You decide who's got it right. And then we're going to tackle the drugs. 40,000 people have lost their lives to drug overdoses. Over the last several years, this crisis, which started when corrupt pharmaceutical companies lied to the people. They lied to the medical system, and they said that their drugs were not lethal or addictive. They were both. OxyContin got the entire continent, hundreds of thousands of people across North America hooked. And people then graduated up to stronger opioids that ended their lives. These corrupt companies knew exactly what they were doing, but they did it anyway to make billions of dollars. They've been sued in the United States and had to pay $54 billion in damages. Here in Canada, they paid next to nothing. And now what do they say is the solution? To give out more drugs. But they say, don't worry, they're pharmaceutical drugs. Isn't that what started the problem in the first place? And now we learn that Justin Trudeau has a secret plan for national decriminalization. A document prepared which described how all the hard drugs will be legal across Canada. It'll be easier to get crack, cocaine, heroin than it is to get a candy bar from a corner store if Trudeau and the NDP are re-elected. Common sense conservatives, it is a wacko plan. That is absolutely right. It's very wacko, and the consequences are deadly. And that's why common sense conservatives will block it from happening. We will ban the drugs. We will stop giving out tax-funded narcotics. We will provide treatment and recovery, just like the Oak Center here in Winnipeg does. We're going to save lives and bring our loved ones home drug-free. That there would be a dollar for dollar rule. How will we pay for it? We will sue the corrupt pharmaceutical companies and make them pay billions of dollars. We're going to end the catch and release criminal justice system. There it is, jail not bail. Jail not bail, right over there. There it is, jail not bail. Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh have allowed repeat violent offenders to leave jail within literally hours of their most recent arrest. Just last week, we saw 18 offenders arrested for 150 crimes. Half of them were out on bail when they were arrested, and 6 of them have since been released on bail yet again. Now, the principle of bail is, yes, the presumption of innocence. But once you've committed 60 or 70 offenses and you're arrested for the same one, I think we can presume that it's dangerous to let you go free again. You know, in Vancouver, they had to arrest the same 40 offenders 6,000 times.
Jesus.
That's 150 arrests per offender per year, or one offense per offender every 2 days. And those are just the ones for which they get caught. Imagine the number of crimes they did that nobody even found out about. If we just had 40 fewer criminals on the street in Vancouver, you'd have 6,000 fewer crime victims. That's the math and that's the reality. So my common sense plan will make anybody with a long rap sheet ineligible for bail, parole, house arrest, or any other free ride. It will be jail, not bail, jail, not bail. Bâtir des logements, réparer le budget, et stopper les crimes. But we're going to do something else. We're going to bring home our freedom again, my friends. We will repeal the censorship laws, C11.
Yeah.
We will repeal the recent censorship law that Trudeau brought in, a 3-headed monster of bureaucracy to censor what you say and arrest you on suspicions of things you might one day say. Those bills and all of the bureaucrats hired to bring those laws into effect will be removed. We will restore freedom of speech in this country. The obsession with silencing dissenting voices will come to an end. We'll require universities uphold Section 2B charter rights for faculty and students. If you disagree with Jordan Peterson, fine, debate him. You can't censor him. You'd lose the debate anyway. That's right. We're going to teach kids how to think, not what to think. ideology that represents a sharp departure from anything we've ever seen. You know, the NDP used to stand up for the working class, now they stand up for a big government. The Liberals used to believe in liberty, while Conservatives believed in conserving it. Now, Liberals are afraid of freedom, because they are worried that people might choose something different than their hardcore radical ideology. They want to control everything. Trudeau's only two principles are, one, that the government should control everybody, and two, that he should control the government. And it turns out Jagmeet Singh agrees on both of those things. Whereas we as Conservatives, we don't want to run your life. If I were creating a new political party from scratch, now our party president's here is getting nervous. But if I were to create a new political party from scratch, it would be the Mind Your Own Damn Business Party. I believe that you have the wisdom to do that. And that's why we're going to stand up for that freedom. The freedom for which our soldiers fought. We will, by the way, speaking of our soldiers, we will cut back on foreign aid to terrorist dictators and multinational bosses and put that money on military to rebuild our armed forces. Look how bad things are. It's easy to lose faith. It's easy to wonder, can we ever dig ourselves out of this incredible mess? Have we ever been in such a nightmare before? Well, the truth is that we have faced hard times in this country in the past, although unlike present, they were not inflicted by our own government. I think of the great generation that fought the Second World War. Weren't they an incredible generation? I met this incredible 102-year-old man. 102 years old. He was born in 1922. So he would have been 7 years old when the stock market crashed, kicking off the Great Depression. All of his adolescence would have been about scraping by and avoiding the starvation of the Depression. Once he got through that, they sent him off to war. And from 1940 till 1946, he served overseas. He went to Britain, to France, to Belgium, to Holland, to Germany. He actually landed on the beaches of Normandy on the fourth day. He drove a Mack truck with 10 tons of ammunition to help arm his comrades to fight against the enemy. And then in 1946, he came home. He was just at this Legion Hall. And I said, after all that, you came back to Canada? What did you do? I got to work. That's what he said. He didn't say, I needed a break. I took some time off. He went straight to the auto sector and started building things. And that was the great generation. They lived the Great Depression. They fought a war. They came home. They didn't take any time for themselves. They simply went from the battlefields to the farm fields and the factories. And in the 3 decades that followed, they paid off our entire national debt and handed the highest standard of living to our country that the world has ever seen. Yeah. We can come back from anything. We are Canadians, my friends. Easy street leads to a dead end. The hardest roads lead to the best destinations, and we have the best destination in store. We are going to make this country the freest on earth, where you have the opportunity to work hard, earn a powerful paycheck and pension that buys affordable food, gas, and in a safe neighborhood where your kids are raised and taught reading, writing, arithmetic, and our proud history under our proud flag. My friends, we are going to bring home the country that we knew and loved based on the common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home!